All right, so good morning, our audience today. Thanks for joining us on this wonderful day, a very sunny day, quite a sunny day in Nairobi, and always good to be hosting you these Fridays. It has become a culture, and kind of love it. So yeah, welcome to the LVG's webinar. Of course, today my name is Sefa Zakov. I am the founder and lead at Cyber Africa. Um, Again, we call ourselves the Voice of Africa Cybersecurity, and we do media for cybersecurity with a mission to, take the Africa cybersecurity conversations to the continent and the global level. So we do a lot of media, special industry programs, events, awards, and more. And you can always check us out online on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and we'll be sharing links to those places. In this webinar today, we'll discuss cybersecurity, considering the social networks. And with me, I have several guests who will give us perspective on their insights and thoughts around the intersection of cybersecurity and social networks. And I'll be asking them to introduce themselves in a little while, but in the meantime, I'd like us to connect with one another. So I will ask Lisa to share some links to the LinkedIn and Twitter spaces for our guests today. But then as well, you can check out the links that I'm dropping for you guys on the chat section right about now. Please connect with us, follow us, DM us, whatever it is you can do. But let's keep talking. Let's get connected. Okay, a bit of housekeeping. Please ask your questions and seek clarifications in the chat. If you have anything that you want to share with the panelists or other audience members, you can share the links and any other material in the chat section. In case of any difficulties or technical hitches today, we ask that stick around with us as we try to hold them out, because whatever can go wrong can go wrong. So please engage with us, be interactive, ask your questions. If you feel you want to say something, just raise a hand and we'll unmute you so that you can be able to speak. But engage with us in the chat section. So before we get into today's agenda, last week we talked about emerging technologies, and we discussed cybersecurity issues as it relates to new tech, from IoT to deepfakes to AI and 5G, and also you can visit the Yale Bridges YouTube channel for the recording. Lisa will be kind enough as to share the link to the recording last week's webinar. All right, so let's get into today's conversation, and I'd like my guests to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Marion and then Darian.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marion Turihehi. I'm an IT auditor with DFCU Bank in Uganda. I have experience of 9 years in IT, 6 years in IT security. I have worked with financial institutions for 9 years or so. And I have worked in IT risk, IT security, and now currently IT audit. So I'm happy to be here. The second time I'm being hosted by Yale Bridges, and yeah, it's a privilege for me to be here this morning.
First, Darian.
Good morning. My name is Dorian Collier. I've been in the ICT space for best part of a decade and IT security for the last 6 years. I have mainly been involved in government and penetration testing and setting up of, widespread ICT security policies and all of that good stuff. It's been a pleasure to be here and to interact with you all. And I hope you'll have a good time on this show today.
Fantastic. So I sense 2 decades of experience from both of you guys. That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. So thanks both of you for joining us today. I was hoping we'd have Steve and Stanley, but hoping they join in. They join us in the conversation. Okay, so let's talk about social media before we even talk about security. And this is just setting the context for the conversation of today. Um, Starting with you, Darian. So, in your last 6 or let's say 10 years that you've been doing IT, how have you seen the evolution of social media and the implications it has had on individual users and businesses, economy, and regular society? What is your take on this? It's a very general and broad question, but approach it as really.
Okay, I didn't get the last part, but I get the gist of the question. Before, with social media, it was, of course, you had high five. I think that was almost before my time. You had high five, I think, and a few others before Facebook took over the reins. It was a way for people who had lost, fallen out of connections to come back and connect with each other. So it was very important, especially in Sierra Leone, because after the war, the 10 years of war we had here, a lot of people ran away to other countries, emigrated to different states, we were scattered all around the place. So High Five and Facebook in those days were used to connect with old friends and people you knew back in the day, just to check up and see if they were all right and how they were doing. And then it really evolved after around 2010 to 2012. That's when the power of social media started making itself known, especially with regards to the younger populace. They grew up now, those who were born in the 2000s, they grew up with social media. So, and there were not a lot of trainings on how you deal with social media. So a lot of people were swept by the tide of social media, and it had there are positive impacts, but it's had a lot of negative impacts at the same time, because I think it has eroded our culture somewhat, especially in Africa, wherein a younger generation doesn't take stock of what their own culture is, but try to portray the culture that they see being put on show on social media by people from different countries, especially the West. So with regards to the social structure of social media, it has shifted the balance a bit. It has allowed like other more popular countries like the USA to really dominate the social sphere of other countries like in Africa and even in Asia, wherein they can portray their soft power far and wide around the world. And in terms of economics, social media has changed the game. I mean, that's one of the positives of social media. Right now, yesterday I was at a place we used to buy food, right? And they had suddenly changed into a closed store. It was this hole in the wall, and the driver was asking me like, how are these people going to sell these things when they're, it was tucked away in a very secluded place. And then even the keke driver, the three-wheeled rides, is like, maybe they're going to use like social media, they advertise it on Facebook or on WhatsApp, all of that thing. So it has really giving a lot of power back to the people and cut out the middleman. You don't need to rent a store or rent an office in order to sell goods or to sell your services. You can do all of this on social media and reach an even larger audience on social media than you would have ever done with your brick and mortar store by the side of the road. So social media has its good sides and its downsides, but overall, when it comes to financial implications, I think it's been good.
Yeah, I think people are making a lot of money from social media, and there are very many different ways of making money, either directly or indirectly through social media. What do you think, Marja?
On my side, yes, as looking back, when Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook, I think around 2015, his main intent initially was to connect families and friends. 20 years or so later, it's a different game altogether. Social media has facilitated communication. You can now communicate easily and faster. And we are targeting a larger audience. With just one post, you're able to reach thousands of people within a few minutes. Of course, our lifestyles, I can now shop off social media. I probably go to Instagram, click this page. When, of course, you're going to ask this person, how much is this? It will take you to WhatsApp. You will pay. The delivery guy will drop it. So basically, our lifestyle has changed in every aspect when it comes to shopping. With the wake of the pandemic, we're having meetings from home. We are attending ceremonies on social media because the social distancing that is happening everywhere. Now you find weddings are being broadcast on Facebook. Our children are going to school off Zoom, maybe CISO. So yes, social media has influenced our lifestyle. Then of course, now going back to the economic bit of it, companies, brands are getting bigger and better of social media. There's much more interaction between the customer and the business. You find a business is now able to produce services tailored to what the customer really needs. So there's that level of transparency. Then, of course, now companies can scale globally. With just one post, I'm going to market my product, market my whatever I am selling to over 3 billion social media users without having to have physical presence in that country. Then, of course, we've seen more jobs being created because of social media. 15 years back, we did not have social media managers. We did not have social media influencers. With social media influencers, it's very now key for big brands because these are people that will market your product just by wearing it or talking about it. We have seen with social media, we have seen, of course, there's also the dark side of it. When we talk about health and mental issues, we now would have to stem to also cyberbullying. Statistics show that about 3.4%, 34% of children in the United States alone are being cyberbullied every year, almost every year. And again, this cyberbullying will result into mental health, if not suicide, which is really bad. There's also addiction. We're having people cannot live without their phones. Without me being on social media or without me with my phone on a function or anything, I feel I'm incomplete. So that addiction has basically the interaction, the physical interaction between people is something that is basically now out of touch. We no longer have touch with people. Of course, when you now go back to the business end, now that's when we'll go to companies. With just one single post about a company's anything, it can ruin your reputation, and this can go so far. Companies are losing billions of dollars of social media just to probably correct some of these news that comes out that basically does not affect or reflect what it actually does. So in the wake of all of that, I would like to say that when I opened my Facebook account, so many years back, the last thing I had in mind was creating a strong password, or maybe going to my settings and trying to set, probably trying to see what post goes public, what information am I sharing. But with the increase in the number of users on social media, with the number of applications that are being rolled out every other day, cybersecurity is now much more a necessity than it really was, I would say, 20 years or so back. Yeah, so those are my views, Cephas.
It's fascinating, and
yeah,
you cut across some particular things that are really of interest to me. And I used to work a bit earlier on in the years, some years back with UNESCO, and we were doing a lot of issues. We were working on a lot of issues around mental health with regards to social media, and I think that is such a huge problem right now. Mental health is a big problem in itself, not just when you relate it to media, social media per se. So it's a very weighty issue, and then of course the issue of culture, as you had mentioned, Dorian. It's such cross-cutting, and it's amazing to see just how much you're getting a lot westernized. And again, you could think of that as a way of imparting soft power, by the Western countries, not being racist, but it's a way to impart the social power and influence, thoughts and cultures and things. and it's a very complex conversation. But um, just to move from that contextual conversation, we know right now social media has, probably in the last decade or so, we've had what I'll refer to as the new school or the new age billionaires of social media. You know, the Zuckerbergs and the like. Just over 10 years or slightly over 10 years, we've had billionaires, we have multi-millionaires, and this is in dollars, of course. We're having YouTube millionaires, you know, guys making $3 million a year just from streaming crap, sorry to say. But streaming content, you see. So it's fascinating, you know, the implication of social media on economy, on business, and how people are actually making money off of it. But again, those are just my machinations. So the worst side of social media. How is social media dangerous, or particularly hacks? How are social media hacks dangerous to organizations? That I suppose most organizations right now have a digital presence somewhere in the internet, right? You know, it could be social media platforms, or it could be in other places. You know, what are some of the dangers that we should be fearing, Ariel?
When most guys think about a social media hack, they think that, oh, you, you go magically go into someone's Facebook account and hack them, like it's magic or something. But most people don't know that most hackers, or most like threat actors, they use social media mainly for reconnaissance and gathering of data that will help them to, you know, have an effect on what you're doing or on your life in general. Because I always tell this to people, I like, if you go to my Facebook page, I don't think I've posted anything of notes in 6 years, 5 years, I don't know. Because people overuse social media. They put everything on social media, so it makes it so easy for threat actors to get your information and use that information against you. Especially like when I have classes with people, I tell them, you don't take selfies at the office, you don't take selfies in areas that have network equipment, you don't take selfies in areas that have your locks. You know, these basic things are some things that businesses and organizations should look out for. I would be, I know this can be discriminatory in a way, but if I was head of an organization, I would be very, I'll take my time when hiring someone who has a very like active social media page or usage, because there should be a line, there should be a dividing line, because your company's secrets might be leaked out. The person might say something they're not supposed to, that might even affect your brand. So social media ethics with organizations straddles the line between freedom of speech and protecting your business. That is the thin line that we have to straddle moving forward, because there are some areas wherein social media can help your business move forward, as you have indicated. But at the same time, the use of social media, I think, should be one of the topics in orientation in onboarding staff to an organization, because they need to know how to manage the social media use and how and what they put on social media, especially during office hours and all of that. Because you can have someone who works for your business say something stupid on social media. The person might get a backlash, but as soon as they find out that this person is working for so and so company, your company is going to be dragged in to that favor, that backlash, and you might lose some customers or lose a lot of deals. We see it happening every single time, especially this year in 2020 with the BLM movement. So those are my thoughts, because I think that social media education should be one of the top priorities when onboarding staff in an organization.
Yeah, ethics is definitely an interesting conversation. Any thoughts, Marian, on the dangers of social media when it comes to security and privacy, of course? Marian, hear me? Oh, okay.
Marian, I think your
Uh,
mic is on mute.
I will
Yes,
have
so
to.
yeah, sorry I couldn't unmute myself earlier. But talking about social media, you cannot eliminate, there are things that you probably have to talk about when you talk about social media and organizations. One, when it comes to organizations, you're going to have to talk about compliancy, because once you are hacked, definitely you have to pay fines. You have to talk about losing billions of money. You have to talk about your reputation being at stake. So I'm going to basically talk about examples that have really happened, real examples that have happened this year. Looking back last month, July 15th, the Twitter hack, where a US prominent US citizens' accounts, Twitter accounts were hacked through a Bitcoin scam, and they were actually saying they were being generous that day, and I know giving out double the amount of Bitcoins that anybody wired back to them. Looking deeper into the whole issue and what happened, this stemmed from an insider person who leaked internal information to the hackers. At the end of the day, they lost 120,000 US dollars. And well, of course, plus the reputation that was at stake. And this money that was lost was just in over 300 transactions. And this happened in just a period of 30 minutes. Then not so far back, we remember the Zoom accounts that went, they're being sold for free on the dark web. About the time of when COVID, the pandemic, at the start of the pandemic, we had Zoom accounts being sold for free on the dark web. And this stemmed from an issue of reusing passwords. It's very important that when we're using social media, one, we do not reuse passwords. If you have used a password way back in 2013 for probably an application that you're not using today, please, and you probably don't want to change the password, maybe because you couldn't remember it. And yes, so now when you put it in a new account for a new application that you're using, chances are is going to probably be hacked. So at the end of the day, those 500,000 accounts that were hacked for Zoom, those were accounts that were being used, people who were reusing their passwords on social media. And then not so far back, of course, there's also the Marriott franchise where this is a hotel franchise where customer information was leaked, private customer information, credit card information, airline information, your loyalty cards. So yes, these are some of the dangers that stem from the use of social media. It is very, very important that we create awareness, like Dorian had mentioned, awareness within our organizations. And this awareness has to be very, very practical. In that if you tell someone, as opposed to you just ticking a checkbox, you need to ensure that the awareness you're creating is awareness that is going to be very impactful and last. Users have to, if you're creating awareness around a phishing attack, it has to be something that they're going to do. It has to be something that they will participate in, so that they understand how it really happens. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on the dangers. I just mentioned with some examples, some real life examples, so that, and also try to incorporate in what really caused some of these hacks or some of these exposures to customer private information. Yeah, so those are my thoughts, Cephas.
You mentioned the Twitter hack, and we know the Twitter hack happened big time because of social engineering. Hackers were able to get to some of the Twitter stuff, and then one thing led to another, and they were able to access the different high profile accounts. Just recently, Indian Prime Minister's account, I think 2 or 3 days ago, no, actually a day ago, I suppose, his Twitter account was hacked again. Talk of Twitter CEO himself, his Twitter account was hacked. and this is just looking at probably the hacking for the social media platform side. But then we have the dangers that also come with organizational users. Banks and other institutions that have a digital presence, and they have to manage that. And again, there's another whole conversation around social media security management and things like those. But pivoting on what you had said, Marion, about what Dorian had said about the threats. There's a real threat of information gathering. As part of the cyber kill chain, reconnaissance and information gathering and social media plays big time at that level. So, Darian, could you want to explain a bit, how is social media really used to gather information, and what kind of information is out there for you that hackers could get, and how could they use them? I know that's several questions wrapped into one, but just take it as you will.
No problem, no problem. As you know, I'm on LinkedIn, right? And one of one of my most popular posts was about like just as the COVID pandemic was really settling in and everyone was working from home. People started posting a lot of pictures. Now, this was before Zoom started coming in with background pictures, to make the background look all nice and whatnot. And before Microsoft Teams started doing the same thing. So when you are on a Zoom call or whatever, everything would show behind you, right? So a lot of people were posting their pictures. Oh, I'm working from home. Oh, this is so hard, all of that. And just behind them, you could clearly see their home network setup. You could clearly see their router or access points, their door locks, like I was saying, and everything. So one of the things I pointed out is like, let's say you wanted to, like, I won't say hack, if you wanted to like impact, let's say Morgan Stanley, big American bank. And this person works at Morgan Stanley and they are now working from home due to the pandemic. And they post a picture on social media showing their whole setup, their whole network setup, home network setup. That has just bypassed everything that the Morgan Stanley ICT guys had put in place to secure their core network or their corporate network. Because now with people coming in from the home, there are a lot of holes in our home network systems because they are not as secured as they would be at the office. So this was a trend that started taking off, and I thought was very, very, it was very worrying until people started putting the filters and the whatnots behind them so to obscure what was showing on the video feed. So it's something that is extremely important moving forward, because when you do reconnaissance, you could find out a person's, apart from your name, your age, your date of birth, your email account, your phone number. I mean, those three things are enough for me to carry out a very good social engineering attack. I could get you by text, by vishing, by phishing, so many ways just with your email and phone number. And then you add your address into the mix. You add that, oh, you have two kids. They are named John and Sally. I will send you a phishing email that has something to do with your kids. And you'll be like, oh, the parent inside you, oh, I have to click this, bam, I've got you. Or I know where you work. I'll craft an email like it's from your boss, because I already know your boss is on social media and I know all of his details because he's on LinkedIn. I know his title, his everything. I put that into an email and send it to you. You think it's from your boss, open it, bam, you're done. There are so many things that are on social media that can be used against you. And that's why I really stress that people should really look out on what they put on social media, especially with regards to their official lives. So yeah, that's just a part.
Yeah, fascinating. And LinkedIn is a game, when it comes to social engineering, especially when you want to target organizations.
Yeah,
Are there any thoughts?
it's really good
Yeah,
for target.
I totally agree with Dorian over some thoughts there. Of course, in the wake of the pandemic, we had so many people working from home. We had so many people working in an environment that was way out of the office space. And chances are, of course, at the end of the day, you're home. You've been home all day. You're not going anywhere. You're accessing so many different sites. You're going to probably post your very many pictures, and in the process of even posting your so many pictures, you're visiting different sites. As you click on this site, it opens another site, enter your account details, your phone gathered by someone at the other end. And then he mentioned smishing, he mentioned vishing. This one actually has been around, but the fact that the human link is always the weakest link when it comes to security. Until you have been hit personally, you will not learn. Vishing, smishing has actually been around for so many years. We have a text message appearing to come from probably the CEO to their office assistant or their assistant and telling them, pay so and so this amount of money, don't call me, I'm in a meeting. You know, those kinds of scenarios. And at the end of the day, because our users really lack that awareness, they are going to go to the bosses, I don't know, say forever in the office, pick that money and pay, because the message seemed like it was coming from the boss. There have been issues where, of course, people are now moving out there. The device that you're using at home is the same device. You're going to move to a cafe, connect to Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is open. And on that device, there are company documents. There's information that you've been sending emails. You were probably in a meeting earlier and you are probably presenting. So at the end of the day, this information is going to end up in the wrong hands. Then, of course, the boredom that came during the pandemic, there came the catfishing, individuals luring others into a romantic relationship, but for the sake of getting information out of them. And at the end of the day, you find that even the most educated cybersecurity experts could fall prey to those kinds of games, because this is more or less like an online dating scheme. But at the end of the day, if you are not really, really keen on information that you are sharing about your company, where you work, probably your date of birth, because it's somehow always seems like a genuine thing until, of course, you are hit. For more about whaling, there's also whaling. Around this time, of course, there have also been so many phishing emails, COVID, please click here. This is from the company. We are trying to find out if you're okay. Click on this link and download, and it's downloading malware that's going to create definitely a your office. So yes, the pandemic has also more or less facilitated a lot of the issues that are there, but these ones have also been there along the way. And it always stems back to the fact, what kind of awareness are we creating to our users? Because yes, social media is something that is not going away, at least in the years to come. There's almost 500 million, almost half the world's population is now on social media. And there's no seemingly end to all of this. So many people are enrolling, a lot of information is being shared out there. It just goes back to the awareness that we're creating around our users when they're on social media or whichever accounts they're opening. What kind of information are they giving out there? If they work for an organization, what information are they sharing out there? So it always stems back to the end user. Those are my thoughts.
But I guess organizations also have a role to play for the security aspect of it. Beyond awareness, there has to be probably social management, social media security plan, and things like those, which we'll discuss a little later. Yes, but let me stick to the conversation about the threats and the attacks here. And one of the fascinating things that I've learned recently, you guys can chime in on this one, is that information, particularly the ones that are shared through social media, and there's a lot of that out there that is not particularly an internationally agreed upon sort of weapon of cyber war. So in essence, information should not be used to to conduct cyber warfare or international or global cyber operations. I think of it like the case of Russia and China, or the case of China and the US, and you know, situations like those. So what I'm driving at here is the pertinent issues of fake news, misinformation, disinformation, and the like. And there has been a lot of that. We are having, I think, 2 years ago, we had a lot of countries which had elections the same year, and there's a lot of concern around um, how misinformation and fake news. Remember Cambridge Analytica? Misinformation and fake news would be used to influence these elections, to influence democracies. I don't know any your thoughts around this, but I feel this is such a critical issues, and I think just this year I've read a number of pieces that have talked about in detail Russia's involvement in African election, Chinese involvement in African election, and it's pretty scary.
Yeah, that's true.
Dorian?
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's a wide topic because when it comes to disinformation, is like it's like the silver spear or silver dagger. That it's a very powerful weapon. It can affect a country financially, socially, politically, militarily, all of the E's. It can affect them, especially let's say Africa. Let's use Africa as a case study. Most countries in Africa have been subject of tribal warfare and all of these things. It is extremely scary to think of what could happen if someone really wanted to cause problem in a country, and put in a rift between tribes or between religion and whatnot. They could really start a really bad civil war in any country they wanted to, if there are no checks and balances put in place. Because the social fabric of most of our countries are very strong now, but in the past they were a little bit weak. And I could only imagine what could have happened if social media was at play in the 90s during the Rwandan genocide, or during our own civil war in Sierra Leone, or all of those things. It would have been even worse than it already was. So, and there are always people who come out on the side of free speech, and that I'm also part of that group. But this is where the balancing act is really hard for a government to do, because as we know, most of the governments, well, some of the governments in Africa are autocratic. So you have to really balance between allowing free speech to flourish, but at the same time, pegging back on hate speech that will cause division within a country, because African countries are not America. Look at even America right now. America is in turmoil with the BLM movement and other little groups that are popping up just because of social media interactions. Information flies in a heartbeat. Someone does something, everyone knows about it. So this America should be used as a case study for Africa to look at what happens when this is really hard to say and put into words, but you really need to have a populace that is educated on the dangers of social media. One thing I tell people is that not everything you read on social media is true. When you see something on social media, research, go and check it out. Don't just say, oh, someone sent this to me, so it must be true, and I'm holding it as a gospel truth. That is a stupid way to think in 2020. And it's going to cause a lot of problems if we don't get our populaces up to speed with cybersecurity awareness, especially in the political and social sphere. Financially, as we've touched upon, companies, but I want to go into the wider range, like in the government as a whole. If word comes out that the government, like corruption, or a government minister is sick, like one of the main ministers, or is in poor health or something, that could even affect the government's ability to borrow money and affect credit rating if the person is of really high standing. It could have an economic impact, like even in Sierra Leone during the Ebola crisis, right? There was this thing going around that if you wash with salt and water, it would cure Ebola. And people actually did that and took it as gospel truth, which was BS. And I'm pretty sure that led to a loss of life because people will be like, oh, I have salt and water here anyway, so I'm safe from Ebola and all of that stuff. So it will cost lives in the future and it will prolong the effect of any negative things that are happening in the country. Like you were speaking to me, Cephas, about Kenya and the mask wearing and the taking of COVID seriously. If you look at countries like America, they have gone like the opposite of what most countries in Africa did. Africa, we took the threat seriously, engaged our populace, and made sure they took the mask wearing and social distancing very seriously. But I'm pretty sure that due to some cybersecurity threat actors, especially in the social media space, people in the US took it like COVID was fake, not many people are dying, and this not, things like that. And that's why they're in this position right now that they're in the US. So social media can be used to affect even the greatest of countries and bring them to their knees for whatever reason
And
that the factors wants them to. Yeah.
I think the example you've given for the Ebola situation in Sierra Leone,
Yeah.
a really good example of fake news. Use salt and water instead of using sanitizers. They're telling you drink certain concoctions instead
Yeah.
of going to the hospital. That's the impact of fake news on social media is powering that.
And it costs lives. It costs lives.
Fascinating. Marion, you want to chime in?
Yeah, so I totally agree with Dorian, but to focus more on fake news, we all must agree that the tools that social media, in this case, that have given us the voice to express ourselves, to express our opinions, given us freedom of speech. They're the same tools that are used to spread hoaxes and misinform people. And then again, we also must agree that just a deliberate handful of stories, misinformed stories, can have very serious consequences. During the pandemic, initially as it had just started, when people were in lockdown, we were seeing so many stories of social media. People were dying. And yes, people were home, but these kinds of stories evoke sentiments in people, which can have very, very many consequences at the end of the day. I also wanted to say that yes, social media companies, as much as they may not have control over, the fake news, because it keeps coming in and out. But at least I know with Facebook, they are partnering they have third-party checkers that are able to verify the content that's coming through. And if if it is something that is really not verified, then you find that it's not going to appear a lot on the feed. Twitter is also trying to verify the information of its verified accounts to stop misinforming people. So with fake news, we must understand that it can have very dire consequences because it reaches a vast number of people in a very short time. Then talking about democracy and of course governments and national security, social media has given people a voice. People hold the government accountable now. People are able to hold political discussions of social media. People are able to start a cause. We all remember the 2011 Arab Spring. It basically changed an entire government, a series of governments, and this was all done on social media. It was actually heralded as the technology of liberation at the time. The US elections, I think Cephas had mentioned it, this all stemmed from it all just brought in issues of political interference, polarization, and of course, fake news at the end of the day that evoke sentiments in people, and this can affect elections, it can affect democracies that are actually very stable. Yeah, so to to basically close off this bit about national security and fake news and all. Social media, yes, is big. We are seeing so many parties, governments, companies, business, economy, everything is basically now at the front and at the center of social media. And as much as we all know that initially this is something that had started off as an interaction place for people to come in and tell their stories. We're now having people channeling their political energy, people channeling their causes, people channeling their information that is basically having consequences that we didn't much anticipate at this point in time. Yeah, so those are my thoughts, Cephas.
Yeah, totally unanticipated. And personally, I've come to say that deep cybersecurity. It's not about the technical things that we normally talk about. It's not about the malware and the systems and the hacks and everything. They're huge and very important underlying issues and issues of geopolitics, issues of international interests, and some aspects like fake news and misinformation, information warfare really fit or purpose to fulfill the underlying interests. But what do you think is the social media, the impact of social media, particularly on cybersecurity? And you can put this in the context of organizations. Because again, we've seen during the COVID-19, blue teamers are experiencing a lot of alerts that are coming from social media, links shared through Twitter DMs. People are using more and more platforms like TikTok and Telegram for data exfil and more. I mean, what have been your experiences during this crisis?
During this crisis, I sometimes like to point people back to the Edward Snowden incident in America, where he leaked a lot of documents, right? Using the power of social media, that thing spread like wildfire, and most guys all over the world have very sensitive documents about the US, the NSA spying on their computers that they can access. So that's something else that points to what is the meaning of fake news, to be honest with you. But cybersecurity and then social media has been, it has not been easy, because it ties in with BYOD policies and so many other things, because you have companies using social media as an official way of communicating with their public, with their customers. So that brings in a lot of middlemen that could exploit that to send things out that are not savory to the public. And most of the people who are in charge of these social media accounts are people. They make mistakes. They might allow their personal biases to get into what they are reporting on what they are saying on social media, bringing a huge issue to the company at large. And also with the advent of WhatsApp, I think most people speak about Facebook, but for me, well, I'm in Sierra Leone. WhatsApp reigns in Sierra Leone. Is the largest platform here. So WhatsApp has been such a savior in terms of communication. It's made communication easy, but at the same time, it's made the sharing of malware so easy. I mean, people send these links, click this, pop up and see a message, click this, and the links are so scary. You see www.xxxyzz. Like, I'm not going to click that, and people are clicking these things and putting them on their phones. And there was a report a couple of weeks ago from the BBC, I think, that most of the Chinese phones sold in Africa are already bugged or are infected. So when we bring these devices on our network, it's a problem for the blue team, because they are not only having to defend against attacks coming from the outside, now they're having to defend against attacks coming from the inside. And working in blue team, I can tell you that defending from the outside it's hard, but it's not as hard as defending against attacks coming from within what's supposed to be your castle and your sanctuary. So it has caused a huge issue in cybersecurity in general. So that's why most times I tell managers and these guys, don't allow your employees to use their Facebook accounts or blah, blah, blah on office computers. Don't even allow them to bring their home computers on the network. But with regards to phones, that's the issue. Everyone has a phone. Everyone uses WhatsApp. In fact, most people use the phone for social media interaction than the laptops. So a very strong and extremely strong and robust BYOD policy should be in place for these sorts of incidents because they will happen and people will download things they're not supposed to download. You should be ready to get hacked because you will get hacked sometime or someday. So you need to have yourself in order with your backups and all of these things for when that eventuality happens. So it's all about a process of being prepared for what's coming down the line with BYOD and all of these devices on your corporate network.
And then of course right now we have more mobile devices in the world than human beings. It's going to be a very, very interesting decade. The one that you've just got in. Marion, any thoughts?
Yes. When we talk about social media and organizations, specifically now to this pandemic, we've had companies move from physical premises I mean, we are now meeting online. We are doing a lot of our activities online. And that, of course, at the end of the day, exposes the attack surface. It widens the attack surface. And then more to that, we are having a lot of our employees working from home. And sometimes they're accessing company documents on personal devices. These personal devices may not exactly meet the security standards of the internal organization that you're probably working with. So yes, that has more or less impacted organizations now that they really have to have more security configurations done to more or less counter the attacks that would come in all kinds of directions, because the attack surface basically has widened, especially in this period. Then moving on to the fact that now we have create policies around this whole structure, remote work especially, buy your own device policy, educate our employees on social media usage, and especially when you are working, when we have our employees working, are they taking pictures and posting social media when they are at work? What impact does it have on the brand? Then again, we also have the fact I personally work for a bank, and you find that now banks are moving from the whole building to having every service that they offer online. If it is a banking service, if you basically barely have to come back to the bank anymore. So that kind of movement from our physical premise to the cloud or the space, it has widened the attack surface eventually. So that calls in for more monitoring, more tools to be implemented, more awareness for our staff, and of course, yes, more cybersecurity awareness on social media and social networking.
Well, interesting. Just a curious one. Dorian, do you have TikTok told?
No. No.
Marion, do you have TikTok?
No.
I don't think I'll ever install it.
What's the fuss with the TikTok, guys? I mean, well, to be honest, of course, I have friends who have TikTok. I mean, it's very hard to tell them to uninstall it, and they actually do it. Sadly, what's the fuss with this TikTok thing? And then, of course, guess, yeah. What do you think? We're having a lot of Africans using it, and our countries are not saying anything. Like probably India, who banned almost 118 Chinese apps, from their country, for example.
Mm-hmm.
What's the deal with us on TikTok? Why are we really using it?
Well, the truth is hard to swallow, but but to be honest with you, Africa is disaggregated when it comes to a response, especially when it comes to cyber responses, right? So I don't think like West Africa has their thing, East Africa has their thing. So unless Africa comes under the AU banner, and Africa actually, even after the free trade agreement is a step in the right direction, but it must build up to something where in Africa is more intertwined and more aligned. The countries are more aligned with each other. Because when it comes to things like TikTok and all of those stuff, it's like most of the data you put on TikTok, of course, are sent to China and Facebook America. So most of the data don't even stay in Africa. But I'll give you a story a conversation I had with someone some years ago when we were speaking to them about cybersecurity. At that time, cybersecurity was not a big thing in Sierra Leone. The guy was like, he's a manager. He's like, we don't have nothing that they want. We don't have nothing that they come to steal. We don't care. We have nothing that's of use to them. So why would they come here? So I had to really explain to them that they can use your system as a pivot or use your system to launch attacks, on other areas as a pass-through. So a lot of people think in that way that, oh, I have TikTok, so they take my data, so they track me. I have nothing to hide. There is nothing, people are like laissez-faire in that way. And I have a bit of that in me, to be honest. When I use WhatsApp, I'm like, what are they going to do to me? But people don't remember that there is a future, right? You could be a president in the future. You could be a minister. You could be someone in power in Africa in the future. And all of those things that you thought were not important could be used to blackmail you in the future. That's only one part of the issue. So yeah.
It's fascinating. Yeah. It's always hard to be thinking about the future when you have problems of now,
The present, yeah. That's true.
Anyway, Mario, you wanna say something? I mean this TikTok thing. I know. Let me bring in a certain geo aspect to it, because I'm fascinated by the geopolitics of cyberspace. We are talking about TikTok, and you're raising a fuss at how China is using pretty much all their technology companies, including Huawei. Let's be honest, yeah. And we use a lot of Huawei devices, from routers to even our ISPs and all that. So this is China with their TikTok, and they're collecting data, they're relaying it back to China, and they're using it for intelligence purposes. We have WhatsApp and Telegram that is either probably from the West and the US, but they're still pretty much doing the same thing. They won't tell you until you know. I mean, Cambridge Analytica, you'll never have known. But they're still collecting the data, they're still relaying it somewhere, they're storing it, and they're using it for intelligence purposes. I mean, what's the fuss? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a question of we Africans, because we're not good at producing this thing, users. We say, okay, fine. So if Netherlands come with their platform, we are gonna take it, and they're gonna say, oh, you guys, I think this is good. Let's work with you. If South Korea comes with the same, we're also gonna use their platform. Same to China, same to other countries. So it's a case of we need to know our interests, and then we align our interests to what others are offering, and then see if we can do business. Those are just my thoughts, but Marion, what are your thoughts as well?
Basically, to first add on to what Dorian said, it all stems back to data privacy. Social networking has robbed us of data privacy. We basically don't have lives that are private anymore.
Yeah. Sorry, let me jump. Is privacy dead, you're saying?
It is not dead, but when we now narrow it down to TikTok, really, I mean, if I am taking a video when I'm getting up, and then I go to office, and then I'm on the train, and then I go back home, and then I'm at coffee, basically your entire life is out there. And like you have said, this information is channeled back to China at some point or the other. So, and until, of course, it may seem harmless. It may seem harmless if an everyday person, you're like, what would happen to me? I mean, who wants my information? But, well, of course, at the end of the day, the whole fuss of TikTok, you're going to get that one person who they really want. And of course, that information at one point or the other is going to be used against them. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on TikTok. And then going back to what you said, I think when it comes to social media, we had talked about creating awareness, but I think it is also very important that we especially for the younger generation, we tailor programs that basically sort of shape the way in which what kind of platforms are they enrolling on. Because otherwise you're going to have so many young people torn between different platforms, and they lose it along the way. Whatever platform that comes in, they're going to enroll on it. And then again, it also goes back to our governments. What kind of applications do they let into their space? And well, especially for Africa, because yes, as much as Africa may be catching up on so many things, at the same time, we find that we are dumping ground for almost everything that comes into the, the space. So it is very, very important. It goes back to the individual level, our family level, the values we instill in our kids, and then again also at the government level. What kind of information are we letting into our space, and what kind of information is being relayed there that could have an impact on us at the end of the day?
Yeah,
Those are my thoughts. Yeah.
It's definitely a fascinating conversation, and it makes me think about how we need to think of security, not just from not just internally, probably within an enterprise. So, but we need to look at the broader environmental issues and the broader political and changes that are happening. Yes, social media is a big part of that conversation because that is where the masses are from. You can influence the masses. You probably can even topple governments. Just saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, as we wrap this up, could you guys offer some practical recommendations to individuals and organizations how they can keep themselves safe and secure online, and how they can deal with all these issues of disinformation, fake news, all that?
Okay.
Start with Marion.
Yes, so for organizations I could start with the individual level, more or less in our families. I think it is very, very important that we educate our young children. And of course, we monitor the kind of sites that they access, because this has become something that we had already talked about: mental health issues, stress. These are things that are going to affect a younger generation. Growing up, we really didn't have social media until much later, and like Dorian had mentioned earlier, there are kids that have grown up within the social media era, and so you can imagine where they're going to. So basically, it now goes back to us modeling what kind of applications are being accessed by a younger generation. And then, well, of course, with organizations, policies, social media policies are very important. We need to create that kind of discipline in our employees and the people that the access on social media should be restricted, especially during working hours, because you need to have people that are productive, people that are actually working, not as opposed to being on social media all the time. Then with the wake of the pandemic and people working from home, it is very important that we have VPNs installed and on each of our machines when working from home. And then, of course, have multi-factor authentication. Then when it comes to, well, of course, emails and a lot of these other things, phishing and vishing, it is very, very important that we create awareness with our employees. And this awareness, like I mentioned, has to be very practical. It shouldn't be just about ticking a checkbox. Yes, we sent mails. Yes, we sent slides and, something like that. Because at the end of the day, you need your employees to actually practice whatever it is that is out there. So yeah, those are my thoughts, first on the ways in which you can actually control social media issues within organizations.
And awareness is a core part of that whole thing. And can you guys hear me? Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, awareness is huge when it comes to trying to deal with some of these issues. And for me, I'll probably not just consider organizations, probably families or groups. I'll want to think about the consumer. I want to think about the masses, the public, the citizens. How can we, drive consumer cybersecurity awareness? As I personally normally say that in all of our African countries, virtually, generally, we don't talk enough publicly about national security. These are things that when you start to talk about, people start to look at you in a different way. People start to wonder, who is this guy? Why is he talking about security? I mean, they could even brand you a threat, to the national security. But again, the truth is, we don't talk much about that, and also we don't talk much about a national cybersecurity, because the two are very different. We don't want the militarization or the politicization, if I can use that word, of cybersecurity, where it's only considered, in the boardroom of military and law enforcement and all that. It has to be a citizen, it has to be a civilian issue, But hey, what are your thoughts, Darian?
Yeah, I listed three things from the conversations we've had on the side of governments that governments can do. Well, not can do. One of them is what government can do, but one of the greatest issues right now is the prevalence of deep fakes. Wherein you can have a program that can show Dorian saying something bad, right? With my voice, my face, and my likeness, everything. It seems like me. And I'm thinking that if most of the countries abroad are not prepared for this, we are in for a rude awakening in Africa, because that is like a nuclear bomb in an unstable country, having a president or leader go out and say something that's extremely divisive, but it's not really him. It's just because people believe recordings on WhatsApp. So they would definitely fall for a video. So Africa needs to step up big time when it comes to social media. Um, I won't say rationing, because it sounds like kind of militaristic, but what people like consume on social media, because that is the fine line governments have to walk between free speech and fake news and hate speech. It's a really fine line that is extremely hard to walk. So it's something that governments need to figure out and bring in civil societies in to keep them in check. Because if you leave everything to the government side per se, sooner or later it's going to go under national security and it's going to be militarized. That's a fact, just like the NSA in America. So it's something that civil societies need to have an interaction on. And the last thing we spoke about, especially the age, about kids on social media. When you have if you have a robust because I've worked in civil registration for 5 years, if you have a robust civil registration structure, and you know the ages of your population, there can be, it's computing, it's not hard. There should be a system in place that should be integrated with social media and platforms, that you can't just have a 12-year-old on social media lie that they are 18 and they start consuming all these nonsense things that they are not supposed to be consuming at that age. So there should be a system that actually protects our kids, our children, from harmful things. Because a 12-year-old being bullied and me as a big man being bullied are two completely different things. A 12-year-old, that will affect them for the rest of their life and even make them an unproductive member of society. It can even lead to death, suicide. So we really need that. That's a very good thing that she hit upon, because we really need to protect our children for the future of our country, because they are the future. If we allow them to get poisoned at this young age, what hope do we have in the future for Africa? So there should be systems in place that mandate even a gatekeeper that you can only have a social media account when you are 18 or above. That's something that should be in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all of us have really interesting and nice dreams about how we can help out, in terms of awareness and building structure. Yes, for me, my only hope is that there are people out there, or some of us could take action, create and drive this agenda forward. But as a parting shot, how do you see the future of social in Africa or in your country, Marion? Marion, can you hear me? Oh, okay, there you go. I think you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Yes. So yes, my parting thoughts really. Despite, of course, the headwinds and world's population, almost half the world's population is now on social media, and it is growing every day. And there's no near future where you see that maybe social media is going to stop. So yes, this is something that we have to live with. Yeah, and well, of course, it has also impact. It has a very huge impact on our economy, in our organizations, in our families, in our individual lifestyles. It has really affected all of us in one way or another. When it comes to the economy, national security, democracies are changing. There's just a lot that comes with social media. My thoughts is that yes, of course, with the increasing number of people joining social media, with the increasing landscape of applications being produced every other day, with have strict laws and regulations like some countries are doing right now over what kind of applications that we let into our space and what kind of information is being shared. All of these things need to go out to the people out there, and especially to the younger generation. At the end of the day, of course, it all stems back to the fact that yes, cybersecurity is very, very key and a very big necessity when it comes to social networking.
You're fascinating. Darian, as you give us your parting shots. Yes, Marion? Marion, you're losing you there. I'm not sure if it is just me.
No, the line is bad.
Ah, okay. Marion, can you hear me? Okay, so yeah, Darian, as you give us your parting shot, something has just come to mind here, and this is something I've been thinking for a while now. Not sure if you've interacted with this area of security before, but might you have any thoughts around cybersecurity for celebrities? You know, I talk of the high profile, individuals and all that. Plus, again, you can also give us your thoughts about it.
Could you please repeat the last part? Cybersecurity for celebrities? I couldn't get that.
Yes. Cybersecurity for celebrities. I've interacted with a few things around that particular niche clients or niche customers. I find it interesting because again, social media is a big part of celebrity lifestyle, right? And their digital presence is massive for those who are very well invested, in their branding and things like those. So I was just asking you if you have any thoughts around cybersecurity, particularly for celebrities or high-profile individuals, and then as well you can give us your parting shot, how you see the future of social, particularly in Africa, and what you can do about it.
Okay. You've gone off there, but I get the gist of the question. When it comes to high-profile individuals, let me give you how I think of social media, because I'm not high-profile, but this is something that could be scaled up to whatever level you are in, president or pop star or whatever. Think of your social media account as your house, right? You don't let in everyone into your house, every Jack and Jill into your house. You only, because social media at first was created for you to connect with people that you actually know, right? But with the advent of the popular people on social media, they have to reach their fans, and most people don't have personal connections with their fans in the first place. So you need to sanitize your social media every now and then, without the people who are not adding to the conversation, and be very careful of who you link up with as a major voice or major player in a country or a celebrity, because we all know as human beings, like this is the funny thing, this is a disconnect in the human brain and psyche that is very interesting. We all know that there are bad people. No one, there is no super good person of 100% good person. We all know that there are wicked and evil people in the world physically. But then when we go online, it's like a switch gets turned off or our stupidity goes up 2 notches, and we start allowing everybody into our social media circle without thinking that these people might be a threat. So celebrities and people in power need to take this into consideration, or else they are in for a rude awakening one day, because these guys will turn on them and make their life a living hell. I mean, there have been celebrities who have been stalked, who have been harassed, who have been attacked, violently attacked by fans, so-called fans. So that's why people should really be educated about social media um, at a young age. And especially in my country, we just started an ICT curriculum through the schools. So we are on the right track, and I think it's going to be like mandatory. So that's good. And I'm really pushing for there to be a cybersecurity component in that, because our kids need to learn about these things from a very young age so that they can grow up wise and informed, especially when they more or less rise to states of power later on in their lives, so they don't make the same mistakes we did in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Darian. Thank you so much, Marion, for your insights and thoughts. And it has just dawned to me how social media is a very interesting conversation related to cybersecurity and related issues. And I think you guys keep talking about it more in your organizations, in your companies, in different groups that you are in. Tell everyone to stop using TikTok. Disclaimer, but whatever it is you need to say or do, please spread the word, spread the message. Um, Teach as many people as you can how to safe and secure online. I know security incidents happens to the best of us, the security professionals even. We are all human, right? So absolutely. So again, thanks Marion and Darian for your insights. Thanks to our audience for showing up and sticking with us for the last hour, almost an hour. We are grateful, and we hope to further this conversation probably in future webinars. So yeah, I want to thank just everyone for being here, and for my end, I want to welcome Lisa, and she'll be closing for us.
So thank you, everyone. I mean, that has really been quite an impactful session. Just getting to learn about social media and its impact with regards to cybersecurity. I mean, like I mentioned in the chat section, most of us have just, we don't really take social media quite seriously. And so we really neglect a lot of privacy concerns that may at one point or another lead us to um, cyber attacks and malware. I think for most of us, when you're just downloading this application, the brain is usually wired to just click yes without reading the privacy policies.
Yeah.
And that's just a bad thing. So probably as we get to learn more about the security policies and what we need to do, even for us as individuals, then there's room for us to improve and see how best we can safeguard our social media accounts. So thank you so much, Dorian and Marion, for this interesting session. To the participants as well, thank you so much for taking time
Thank
to
you
be
as
with
well.
us. Yeah, so please be sure to follow us on social media platforms. And yes, we invite all our participants and customers to engage with us in the next webinar, where we shall talk about the top features and membership benefits of the Cyber for Growth Business Club. So here, I mean, you get to listen to corporate partner testimonials, engage with industry professionals, as well as, just for us to give you that room to do corporate networking. So follow us on social media for more updates, and we'd be happy to have you participate. Thank you, Safas, for a wonderful session as always, and we look forward to the next webinar.
Thank you guys for having us, and I'm very grateful for this conversation.
Thanks, Dorian. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Mario. Bye.
Take care.